Vietnam, a small tropical land, yet it became the greatest nightmare in the history of American soldiers. Here, they didn't face a regular army, but darkness, jungles, and invisible traps. In the heat of 40 degrees, the humid air clings to the skin like a deadly mist. Leeches, mosquitoes, malaria, the enemies that slip into every restless sleep. Nowhere was safe. Every step could trigger a mine. Every sound in the jungle could be an invitation to death. They had fought in Korea, survived Europe in the world wars, but never before had men been devoured, body and soul, by war itself. Like in Vietnam, here, there were not only bombs and bullets, but fear, doubt, and nightmares that would haunt them forever. And when the war was over, they left Vietnam, but Vietnam never left them. So, what was it that made them so terrified and so haunted? Let's take a deeper look to uncover the answer in the next part of this video. Harsh war environment. The Vietnam battlefield was one of the most brutal and unforgiving environments American soldiers had ever faced. If in Europe during World War II they fought against cold and artillery, then in Vietnam their greatest enemies were nature and their own minds. In the dense jungles, where sunlight barely touched the ground, soldiers fought in over 40 degrees Celsius heat and nearly 100% humidity. Their clothes were always soaked, their weapons rusted, and every step became a game of life and death, with leeches, mosquitoes carrying malaria, skin infections, dysentery, and hidden bamboo traps or homemade mines waiting beneath the mud. In Korea, they could see the enemy across frozen lines, but in Vietnam, the enemy was invisible. He could be a farmer by day, yet a guerrilla fighter by night. Every bush, every sound, could mean an ambush. There was no front line, no safe zone, only a constant tension that slowly drove many men insane. In Europe, war had boundaries and rear lines. In Vietnam, everywhere was the front. Even when they tried to rest, they could never truly sleep, for an attack could come at any moment. Just imagine a soldier deprived of sleep for days, his nerves stretched to the limit, living in fear that the next bullet will have his name on it. How long could his mind endure? In Vietnam, nature was not a backdrop to war. It was a ruthless enemy itself, hot, humid, poisonous, and full of traps. Crisis of faith and justice. The nature of Vietnam, no matter how harsh, with its jungles, swamps, insects, and torrential rains, I believe our American soldiers could have endured it. They could bear the searing heat, the hunger, the thirst, and even the constant fear lurking behind every leaf. But there was one thing they could not withstand: the collapse of their faith. When their ideals faded, when they realized that the justice they were told was nothing but a lie, when they saw that the rifles in their hands no longer defended freedom but were taking it away from others. In that moment, they were no longer warriors, but lost souls wandering in the darkness of their own conscience. At first, the US government told them, "You are fighting for freedom. You are heroes, protecting the world from the darkness of communism." Those young men, only 18 or 19 years old, believed it. They believed they were doing the right thing. They believed that America always stood on the side of justice. But the deeper they went into the war, the more they realized those promises were only a facade. What happened in Vietnam was not a fight for freedom, but a political quagmire where people died for interests and power. For nearly 20 years of war, the United States dropped more than 7.8 million tons of bombs on Vietnam, 3 times more than the total used during World War II. Every day, air raids rained down on rice fields and villages, erasing entire communities within minutes. Villages turned to ashes. Rivers ran red with silt and blood. More than 2 million Vietnamese civilians were killed. 1.1 million soldiers lost their lives, and over 300,000 went missing, never to be found. On the American side, more than 58,000 soldiers were killed. Hundreds of thousands were wounded, and tens of thousands returned home, but their souls never healed. In the jungle, where death could come from any shadow or leaf, young American soldiers slowly lost their sanity. After seeing their comrades ambushed and torn apart, they were ordered to burn everything, wipe it out, leave no one alive. Then, in a haze of fear and rage, the guns went off. Bullets flew, cutting through the cries and screams of women and children. When the smoke cleared, they realized they were no longer soldiers of righteousness, but killers of the innocent. Some broke down and cried. Some vomited amid the corpses. Some stayed silent for the rest of their lives, because they could never forgive themselves. Think about it for a moment. For a soldier, every single day means ending the lives of countless others. Each bullet that leaves the barrel doesn't just take a life, it also takes away a piece of their own soul. When they face the enemy, what do they really see? Not a foe, but a human being, trembling, terrified. Someone who also has parents and loved ones waiting back home. And in that instant, when the other man falls, his eyes remain open, staring straight into the one who pulled the trigger. That gaze holds no hatred, no accusation, only horror. and helplessness beyond words. Ask yourself, how could those soldiers not be torn apart inside? How could they still feel human? When day after day, their hands are stained with blood, and their hearts grow emptier with each life they take. At night, in the darkness, the cries, the screams, those haunting eyes return again, like a verdict that never ends. They said, "I came to Vietnam to protect freedom, but in the end, I killed it with my own hands." When they returned home, they carried images they could never erase. Burning villages, crying children, the smell of smoke and blood. A nightmare that replayed every single night. Many American veterans admitted, "I didn't die in Vietnam, but a part of my soul was buried there forever." Psychological trauma, the never-ending haunting. War does not only kill on the battlefield, it also kills slowly within the minds of those who survive. After every battle, they brought back not victory, but the memories of corpses, of blood, of the stench of burned flesh, and the screams that tore through the tropical night. Those images haunted them for the rest of their lives. They suffered from endless insomnia, startled at the sound of thunder, panicked at fireworks, and even feared the sound of rain, because it reminded them of bullets tearing through the jungle years ago. When they returned home, they thought they had escaped the war. But in truth, the war never left them. It lived on inside, buried deep within every nightmare, every drop of cold sweat in the dark of night. They could no longer fit into normal life. Many fell into depression, alcoholism, and drug addiction, and countless others chose to end it all with one last bullet, this time aimed at themselves. According to a report from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, of the more than 2.46 million American soldiers who had served in Vietnam, at least 22,736 took their own lives between 1979 and 2019. Counting the entire Vietnam War era, a total of 94,497 U.S. veterans from that generation died by suicide, nearly 1.5 times more than the number of American soldiers killed in combat. As for PTSD, it is estimated that around 271,000 Vietnam veterans still suffer from its severe symptoms, even more than 40 years after the war ended. Other studies suggest that 15 to 30% of all U.S. soldiers who served in Vietnam experienced post-traumatic stress disorder at least once in their lives. These numbers tell us something undeniable. War never truly ends. It only changes the place where it kills. On the battlefields of Vietnam, bombs and bullets took their bodies. But when they came home, memories and guilt took their souls. Many American soldiers survived, but died slowly in silence. In sleepless nights, in empty bottles, in the echo of a gunshot inside a lonely room. These numbers remind us that it was not only the Vietnamese who bore the pain of this war. America, too, paid the price with an entire generation that lost its soul. That is the price of a misguided war. A lesson that the United States, and all of humanity, must never forget. Those whom the Americans once saw as weak, turned out to be the very people who could make a superpower kneel. In 1964, right in the heart of Saigon, a place the U.S. believed to be absolutely secure, a small group of Vietnamese commandos quietly moved through the shadows, carrying nothing more than a few dozen kilograms of explosives, and an unbreakable faith in their mission. And with a single explosion, they achieved the impossible, sinking an American escort carrier, inflicting massive financial losses, and, more importantly, delivering a psychological shock unlike anything the U.S. had ever faced. From that moment, the world began to look at Vietnam with different eyes. So, what really happened that dark night? Who were the men brave enough to challenge the very symbol of American naval power? The answer lies in the next episode. USNS Card, when 80 kilograms of explosives shook the United States. Finally, thank you for watching the video. Please help us get our first 1,000 subscribers. See you in the next videos.